Hello, and welcome back to 1851's Top Franchise Legal Players series. My name is Ben Warren, and today I'm so excited to be joined by Nancy Lanard of Lanard & Associates. Nancy, how are you?
I'm great, thank you, Ben. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. So let's jump right into the questions. First of all, how did you end up specializing in franchise law, and what drew you to the field?
I was in-house counsel to Nutrisystem 25 years ago when Nutrisystem was the #1 weight loss company in the US with 1,300 franchise locations and 500 corporate. I learned retail and franchising and commercial retail leases at that time. So when they went into bankruptcy, I started my first law firm. And it was always focused on franchising.
Oh, so the whole time you've been focused on franchising?
Pretty much, yep.
So, in 2021, what's remaining of 2021 and next year in 2022, what do you think is the biggest legal hurdle facing the franchise industry?
That's an interesting question because I think we're still very much in the midst of dealing with COVID issues. And so my response is that I think that we still are trying to dig out from under that. I think we still have lease issues. There's always the threat of another closure. Whether it's state, local, or federal mandated. I think that mask issues are huge and employers don't know how to handle that, whether it's a franchisee as an employer or anyone else, on how to handle bringing back the workforce into a building. And so whether it's a retail or not, I think it's an issue. People coming into your home, if it's a home-based business where they go out and they do put in decks or do new windows or window treatments or anything else where they're going into people's homes, I think that it's an issue. Do they have to wear a mask when they come in the home? Do they need to wear gloves when they come into the home? What is the protocol today? And I think that's a huge issue that people are wrestling with. And what are they comfortable with? What is the law in each state on what an employer can and cannot say? So I think all of that is part of it.
And in your experience, either directly with your clients or just what you're seeing in the industry, how do you feel about the industry's response to COVID? Are we adapting?
So my firm only represents franchisees at this point. We don't do any franchisor work. So we aren't advising franchisors on this aspect. But as far as working with franchisees, back in March of 2020, I certainly was handling a lot of lease issues because there was a government mandated shutdown, and yet they still were obligated to pay rent as a franchisee/tenant. And so I think that's a huge issue. And I think going forward, they're still struggling to get out from under that. I think a lot of retail businesses are still struggling. I think, getting employees to come in and work, I think is a major issue. You can go anywhere today and find shortages of employees, shortages of products. People aren't able to get them as they used to. And I think that's a big issue for both franchisees and franchisors because you just have these horrible shortages of the work staff as well as of products. So it impacts everybody and every business. You're just hearing on the news, about major retailers like a Costco or Target or Walmart and how they can't even, get enough toilet paper in to sell to people and shortages of everything. So I think that's a huge issue. And I think that's going to be a major issue going forward as well until that's remedied.
Right. What is the most common mistake you see franchise brands or maybe in your case, franchisees making from a legal perspective?
So I think that overextending the franchise agreement, I think, is overreaching in many, many cases. And of course, the more established a franchise is, the less likely the franchisor is going to be to negotiate anything. Once they have 100, franchisees under their belt, they just generally don't want to negotiate their franchise agreement. And yet it can be very overreaching. I love to see a franchise agreement that actually is drafted with both sides in mind, but that's a rare occurrence. And so to me, that's a mistake. Franchisors should be cognizant that their document really should be fair to both sides, because if it's not, down the road, they're going to have issues. So I see that. And I also see, of course, a huge area of mistakes that franchisors make is also, from the franchisee perspective, is also not having item 19 disclosures that are completely accurate, that really are reflective.
That perhaps that answers my next question as well, which is what is the one thing you think every prospective franchisee should know before signing on with a franchise?
Exactly that. Yeah.
Okay.
That item 7 and item 19 are not audited numbers. These are numbers produced by the franchisor. They're supposed to be based on reasonable basis for the producing those numbers. And of course, in the states that the franchisor is required to register that FDD, the examiners are looking to make sure there's a reasonable basis, but it doesn't mean that they're audited numbers. And I think that a franchisee is wise to validate those item 7 and 19 numbers and make sure. And today there's a lot of franchisors that aren't even putting out item 19 numbers because 2020 numbers were so horrible. So they really need to find out what the revenues are and bottom line is after expenses before they invest in a franchise opportunity. And I think talking to other franchisees independently from the list that's in the FDD, as opposed to those that are set up by the franchisor, is also very, very important.
Yeah, absolutely. We talk a lot about franchisee validation, but I think something that is missed a lot of the time is verifying those numbers that you see in the FDD, like you said.
It's critical. Yeah.
So my final question for you, what do you love about the industry? What has kept you working with franchisees for so long?
Because you do have an FDD. Somebody that's going to go open up their own, window treatment business or their own fitness business or their own massage business or a restaurant, and they're not a franchisee. They're just opening independently. They have a great idea. They want to open up their location. They don't know if it's going to be successful. They don't have, a good franchise system has demographic studies, has an FDD that has a lot of valuable information in it that a prospective franchisee can utilize to validate the system and as well as the opportunity. Find out if the franchisor's financials show that they're healthy and strong. Look, I come from Nutrisystem where they went into bankruptcy because the 3 owners took a lot of money out of the business. And not because it wasn't successful, it was incredibly successful. It was the #1 weight loss company. Weight loss is huge in the US. So they were incredibly successful and they validated wonderfully, but their financials were horrible. And they went into bankruptcy when they had some tough times. So to me, there's a lot of information available to a prospective franchisee that isn't available if you're just trying to open up your own business. And I think that's what makes franchising so great. And I love working with franchisees and helping them navigate that FDD and navigate this business. So that's what I love about it. I just think it's a great industry. I think it can be very successful. And if you know how to look at it correctly.
It's a fantastic answer. Thank you. So those are all the questions I have for you today. Nancy, thank you so much for joining us, and I can't wait to check in with you again soon.
I would look forward to that, Ben, and thank you so much for this opportunity. I appreciate it.